Folks, I get a lot of questions on the channel about treating beta fin rot. I know it's an important topic and a lot of us have to deal with it. There are some solutions that I've used in the past that's worked very well for me and worked well for others. But right now I'm dealing with a particularly tough case of fin rot with my Betta Patriot. And it's a tougher case because he is now an older beta. So in what is probably going to be a 3 or 4 part video series, I'm going to pack in all that I know about treating beta fin rot. I'm going to take you through the whole process with Patriot and all the methods tried. Part 1 of that series is coming up right now. For those that are familiar with the channel, you're probably familiar with my Betta Patriot. For those new to the channel, first I want to say welcome aboard. Thank you for subscribing. Proud to have you. And I should probably introduce my Betta Patriot to you. He has not been on the channel in a while, though he is alive and well. Patriot is my koi beta. I've had him for a couple years. He is a self-proclaimed actor, beta model, and philanthropist, apparently. He's been on the channel making appearances from time to time, done a few commercials, and showed off his posing moves, apparently, from time to time. But I'm dealing with the second case of fin rot with Patriot. What makes this case tougher is that he is now an older beta. He's in his golden years, so to speak. And what I'm going to try to do, even though I'm not an expert, I would not say I'm an expert on fin rot by any means, but I've had solutions that have worked in the past, and in dealing with this fin rot with Patriot, I've certainly done a lot of research and learned a lot. There are things I did well, there are things I could have done better, and I want to try to share everything that I know about treating beta fin rot because I have been through the ringer on this one into 3 or 4 videos. I want to do a special shout out and thank you to the Betta Sushi. Please check out her channel on Instagram. She has a beautiful beta named Salem. She is very knowledgeable about fish, is a great friend of mine, and was a huge help in treating Patriot. We spent hours on the phone, hours texting about the best strategies and the ways to treat Patriot to help him get through all this. So please do check out her channel, the Betta Sushi, on Instagram. So again, doing my best to pack everything I can on treating a beta fin rot. Coming up, again, probably going to be a 3 or 4 part series, and here is part 1. A while back on the channel, I did a video called How I Cured My Beta's Fin Rot, and this was using a treatment that's worked very well for me in the past, 4 times with 4 different betas. I know a lot of other people have tried this. It's a combination of jungle fungus clear and Canaplex, and it's worked for them as well in some cases. But the problem with Patriot's situation is he is now an older beta. So I wanted to start this series with color change and aging in betas, because if you do have to deal with fin rot, aging is going to play a factor. Now, the day I brought Patriot home was May 28th, 2018, and we figured he was about a year to a year and a half old according to the local fish store. Immediately his color started changing. Here's November 29th. Here is May 19th. And this is something that naturally happens as betas age. Here's July 6th, 2019, so you can see the progression and his color change. Now, when I first noticed the fin rot, and this was not the first time we've had to deal with fin rot, this was on October 27th, 2019. I saw some of his fins receding. Now, looking back into my journal, we dealt with this on October 13th, 2018 as well. And Patriot's fins were coming back. I used the Jungle Fungus Clear Canaplex treatment for him then. But now he's about 2.5 to 3 years old, and he just quite isn't as resistant as he used to be. So what happens as betas age and they get a little bit older? Of course, this is all going to be a progression, but you're going to see some characteristics when betas get older. Number 1, you're going to see a color change. As we just saw with Patriot, you saw how drastically his color changed over the months, and their colors will appear a little duller. Their iridescent colors can fade a little bit, so that is natural as betas age. Now, loss of sight. They may miss food when lunging for it. I have an example here of Patriot trying to get a pellet, but he can't quite see it as well. He finally does get the pellet, but this is common as betas age. Their eyesight, just like in humans, a lot of times just quite isn't as good. So if you notice your beta missing food a little bit when they lunge for it, it could be just simply the aging process as their eyesight isn't as good. Now, lethargy, just increased lethargy, laying on the bottom, resting. Just like humans do when they get older, they need a little more rest. So this is very typical to see in older betas. Now, here's a big one, and that's chronic fin rot. As they age, you can experience indefinite fin rot no matter the medication, no matter the treatment you used. It just simply can't be stopped. It's part of the aging process. Now, cataracts as well may develop on the eyes. The eyes might have a filmy appearance. Patriot has a cataract right now on his left eye. So everything that we're dealing with certainly has to do with the aging process. Back to the story. On October 27th, when I saw the first signs of fin rot. Now, here was my initial treatment and thought process. And again, in this video series, I'm going to point out things I did and things I could have probably done better. Because I figured this was a mild case of fin rot, I used aquarium salt, sodium chloride, and Indian almond leaves as a first treatment, thinking that this is a mild case of fin rot right now, and this is the first treatment I'm going to try. Now, what are the benefits of aquarium salt? And again, we're talking about sodium chloride, NaCl, not magnesium sulfate. That is Epsom salt, and that is used for bloating and constipation. But aquarium salt can be a great all-around treatment or even a medication. It can be very effective against fungus, bacteria, and external parasites. And the way it kills off those critters, those bad bugs, is it essentially dehydrates them. Your fish has a lot more mass and water volume, so these smaller critters are going to get dehydrated first. But very important with salt, the level that you dose makes a huge difference. And this is what I certainly learned going through this process. Now let's talk about Indian almond leaves. What are the benefits there? Well, these are from the dried leaves of the Terminalia catapa tree. Hope I'm pronouncing that right. Native to Southeast Asia. In the picture on the right-hand side, you can see regular leaves and a dried leaf right there on the bottom. Now, what almond leaves are going to do is they're going to release tannins that fight bacteria and fungus, or so we think. That is the consensus on a lot of betta breeders. It contains flavonoids, one in particular called quercetin, and this is an anti-inflammatory in humans. So a lot of betta breeders swear by these for their healing properties. Now, in preparing the Indian almond leaf, these I just simply bought online. And what I wanted to do first is just wash the leaf just to get any excess dirt or dust particles, debris off of it. We want to start with one medium-sized leaf per 10 gallons for the medicinal benefits of the leaf. And what I did here is I broke this. This is about a medium-sized leaf, or so it said. Broke those up into little pieces, and then started to prepare my aquarium salt. Now, very important when you're using salt, please always pre-dissolve salt prior to putting it in the tank. I know a lot of people don't do this. You can certainly just add salt in the tank, but salt can burn your fish. It can burn the gills. So I like to always pre-dissolve salt when I use it. I used to use it a lot 8, 9, 10 years ago when I first started in the hobby. And what I'm doing here is I'm putting in 2 tablespoons. I'm following the directions on the box, which is 1 tablespoon per 5 gallons. This is the first error. I use the recommendation dosing on the box, 1 tablespoon per 5 gallons. Now, this is fine for small wounds and minor healing, but what I was to learn is not for fin rot. So what I have here for the 10-gallon tank, 2 tablespoons at a 1 tablespoon per 5-gallon ratio. I did use aquarium water there to dissolve the salt, but you can also use regular tap water and dechlorinator in it as well. I left the salt on the table so it could start to dissolve, and then added my Indian almond leaves to the tank. Now, you can boil these leaves if you want ahead of time, and there's pros and cons of boiling them. And when you do boil them, they are going to sink faster, but when you boil them, they also release the tannins, and it's the tannins and the flavonoids that have the medicinal properties in them. So I elected personally not to boil these beforehand. They do sink after about 17 to 20 hours. That's what I experienced. They will start to sink. Sometimes they'll sink even earlier than that, but I chose not to boil these first because I didn't want the tannins leaching out. I wanted to try to save as much of the medicinal property as I could in the Indian almond leaf. And again, this is 1 medium-sized leaf for every 10 gallons. You could certainly add a little bit more. It's not going to hurt anything, but I was just following the research and following the suggestion there. You can see all the almond leaves. That entire leaf is now in the tank. And I went back to check on my salt. Always want to make sure that, at least for me personally, I always like to make sure that my salt is completely dissolved before I add it in the tank. And if you're using an aquarium salt like API's, which is more of a rock salt, it does help to stir the salt. That's going to help it dissolve a little bit faster. Now, depending on your flow in the tank, now this particular 10-gallon tank didn't have a ton of flow because a Betta was in it, so I wanted to limit flow. I kind of spot added the salt in different areas of the tank. Now, when you add it in, if you haven't used salt before, you'll see it looks very cloudy when you add it in there. And you can see the salt going into the tank. And again, I kind of spot added it first on the right-hand side of the tank, then the left-hand side, then the middle, then the back of the right, back of the left, just to make sure that I was getting complete coverage around the tank. And rather than adding a lot at a time, you can see here on the top, I'm just pouring in a little bit. It looks like a lot more when you look at it underneath the water, but again, just spot adding this around certain areas in the tank. Now, little did I know I was making an error here. I'd never used salt to treat fin rot. And this is one of the errors I want to share with you if you want to use salt to try to combat fin rot. Remember, we talked in the beginning of the video, my first error, what I didn't do exactly right here. And what I didn't do exactly right was the dosing amount. I followed the back of the box. And that's fine and good if I'm treating a very, very minor cut or a scratch. But using the ratio on the box of 1 tablespoon per 5 gallons, this was after a lot of research and reading people's experience. The Betta Sushi helped me with that as well. The consensus was that at that strength, it's not going to get fin rot. Now, at a ratio of 1 tablespoon per 3 gallons, you may be able to get mild cases of fungus and bacteria. I had a mild case of bacterial fin rot. You can also get ick at a ratio of 1 tablespoon per 3 gallons. And at this ratio, the fish starts to irritate the fish's slime coat, which means they're creating a mucus barrier around their scales that helps protect them further against bacteria, parasites, or fungal infections. Now, at a ratio of 1 tablespoon per 2 gallons, you're going to be able to get more serious fungus and bacterial infections. And the absolute strongest, where some people have even claimed it's gotten velvet, is 1 tablespoon per gallon. The strongest cases of fin rot, fungal infections, salt is very, very effective and very strong at 1 tablespoon per gallon. But where I should have been to start with mild fin rot is a ratio of 1 tablespoon per 3 gallons. But I didn't. In the tank right now is 1 tablespoon per 5 gallons, which wasn't going to work. Now, before putting the salt in, I do want to mention I did remove the nearite snails. I didn't really worry about the Malaysian trumpet snails. There's so many in there, they're almost impossible to remove. This is the next day, where all of the Indian almond leaves sank down into the bottom of the tank and did start to release tannins. They do start to release the tannins immediately when you put them in the water, but you certainly really notice a difference after about a day once they're underwater and they start releasing those tannins. What I didn't know here, though, was this was not going to be successful. The salt content is not strong enough for this mild case of fin rot. Now, I had to see that happen, and I certainly learned from this, but I had to go on to another remedy, which we're going to cover in the next video. Hope that video was helpful. As a start, I have a lot more to share with you. Please like, comment, and subscribe for future content. Welcome to the new subscribers. We'll see you soon.